maintaining a clean environment around you. Whatever you do at home, you use Lysol, that is perfectly fine. You use Harpic in the bathrooms, that is perfectly fine. Just keep your floors, the doorknobs. Suppose somebody is coming inside your house, keep the doorknobs clean. And if you have outside, you have a ground or you have a veranda in front of your house, you can just spray it with 1% sodium hypochlorite. It's a very cheap solution which is available in the market. So you can just spray it along with it. And there is a lot of confusion about what type of sanitizer to use. You can use an alcohol-based sanitizer, which is the best. Herbal sanitizers, I'm not very sure of. They said they don't have alcohol. I'm not very sure about it. But you can take an alcohol sanitizer, which should have at least 65% of alcohol content in it. This is prescribed by the World Health Organization. And you can wash with any soap. You want to come home, you don't have a sanitizer, you have gone outside, don't have a sanitizer, you can wash your hands with soap. But the most important point is you have to wash your hands for at least 20 seconds. And if you start calculating and you see your time, there are very few times where you actually wash your hands for 20 seconds. Doesn't happen. So that's where the sanitizer comes in. You just put 2 or 3 drops of sanitizer on your hand and you just rub them nicely. So you are done with it. And you don't need an antibacterial soap. I saw Dettol soap just flying off the market shelves. That any soap will work. You have Lux, you have Dove, anything will work. Any soap just dissolves the outer layer of the virus and the virus is dead. And any items you receive from outside should be sanitized. And maintaining basic etiquette, like when you have a cough or when you're sneezing, cough into your handkerchief or just keep your elbow like this and cough into your elbow so that you don't generate aerosols into the air. And if somebody is sick, just avoid materials that are being used by him or her. Madam, can we have the next slide, please? Okay. So this question was asked to me by many people, asking me for how long does the virus sustain on a surface? There have been various studies, but a conservative estimate tells me that on plastic and stainless steel, it survives for up to 72 hours. If a person has coughed onto a stainless steel table or a spoon, it can stay there for 72 hours. Unless and until you sterilize it, unless and until you clean it with alcohol or clean it with soap for at least 20 seconds. Less than 4 hours of copper. Some people say that's why people used to have copper utensils and copper hand knobs previously, but now we don't have them. On cardboard, less than 24 hours. And the second thing is just avoid touching your eyes, mouth or nose. Madam, can you have the next slide, please? Now, regarding masks, if you have not understood anything, this is the most important slide. Do not wear a cloth mask. It doesn't help you. For the basic reason that cloth is too porous for the virus. The virus is smaller than a bacteria. It doesn't prevent you, doesn't prevent the others. So do not wear a cloth mask. It is as good as I'm not saying that's not good as wearing anything, but it might look fashionable wearing a very colorful mask, but it is not helping others. Neither it is helping you. Best is to wear a 3-ply surgical mask, which many surgeons use. Now you have to understand about the surgical mask is that surgical mask will prevent your secretions from going outside. But if the virus is there in very close to you and somebody has coughed, you still have a chance that this virus you can inhale that virus. So along with the 3-ply surgical mask, you also need social distancing. So it doesn't mean that you have worn a mask and you can go to the mall, you can go to a wedding, it doesn't happen. You wear a mask and also practice social distancing of at least 3 feet between people. And the third one that I'm showing in the slide, if you can see, it is an N95 mask. That N95 mask is only essential when you're taking care of a COVID patient, somebody who is suspected is at home and you're taking care of him or her. But the one thing is that do not exercise while wearing a mask. It can have complications, because what is exactly happening is you're breathing out carbon dioxide, and N95 mask, the same breath is taken again inside. So basically you're rebreathing your carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide normally has to be between 30 to 45. It rises up to 58 to 60. So do not wear it while exercising. Can we have the next slide, please? So social distancing, keep at least a distance of 3 feet between people, and avoid funerals, avoid weddings, avoid parties. Our experience in the past 3 months is that most patients, what we have seen, have either attended a party or a funeral. Somebody has attended a small gathering at home with 30 people, 20 are positive. Some people have attended a funeral, and a lot of people accumulated there, and people were hugging each other in grief and sorrow, and that's how the virus spreads. So you have to maintain social distancing. Can we have the next slide, please? So medications or measures to prevent. So all this is not 100%, but these are, you have to boost your immunity. And how do you want to boost your immunity? You have to sleep well. Take at least 7 hours of sleep per day. For kids, probably 8 hours of sleep per day. Eat on time. Take your meals. Don't miss your breakfast. And third thing is exercise. Some form of exercise. You want to do skipping, you can do it. You want to do swimming, you can do it. You want to, do aerobic exercise, floor exercise, that is also fine. You want to do cycling, running on the treadmill, that is fine. But some form of exercise. Now, many people come to me and say that, Doctor, I work, morning till evening. I'm working in the house. I wake up at 5 o'clock. I sleep at 10 o'clock. I'm, busy all day. I'm just running around them. That exercise is not counted. That is your work. At no point in your day have you reached a heart rate of at least 120. But you climb on the treadmill or you start skipping. Within 5 minutes, you attain a heart rate of 120. So with a heart rate of 120, you have blood circulation going around your body, and that energizes you. So the third thing, what I recommend is doing betadine gargles. The seat of the virus is your upper respiratory tract, that is your throat. So what you need to do is take 5 ml of betadine and 5 ml of tap water or your drinking water, and just gargle 3 times a day. If you're moving out, you're taking care of some patients, you're taking care of people who are sick, just do this gargling 3 times a day. Vitamin C, you get tablets over the counter. Limc, you have Saxi tablets. Take at least 2 grams. Take at least 2 grams per day. For example, a tablet has around 500 mg. You take 4 tablets per day. And zinc, you get tablets like Zinconia. You can take up to 20 mg per day. And avoid stress. As I said, that you take a lot of stress. You listen to a lot of news. You read WhatsApp. So many people died today. So many people died tomorrow. So your immunity goes down. And many people who were very good, who were under stress, got the infection in our hospital. That's what we have seen. Can we have the next slide, please, madam? So the investigations, I don't think this is necessary, but I just want to clarify a few things. For the common people, you get a CBP, a serum ferritin, you get a CT scan of the chest. Now, if you come to the hospital with a fever and you have cough and you have loss of taste, we get a CT scan of the chest. Usually the CT scan of the chest shows lesions after 2 to 3 days after the symptoms start. So if the CT scan is showing any lesions, then we advise for a swab. That is what the government is doing. That is what the labs are doing. But the problem with the swab test is that if 100 people have COVID, 30 to 40% can be negative. That is not a problem of the lab. That is not a problem of the technician who has taken your sample. It is a problem of the test itself. It is just 60 to 70% sensitive. The third test is an antibody test. It is a blood test. It will tell you whether you have had the infection or not. As doctors, we wanted to get it done to just know that probably we might have got infected and the virus must have gone away from the body, because we didn't test it, we did not know about it. So we didn't get it done till now, because there are flaws with the test also. There is something called as an antigen test. That is also a blood test. If you come to me with a blood test, I would still go ahead and do a CT scan of the chest. Now another question arises. Now everybody is scared. Why not, everybody go and get a CT scan of the chest done? Doesn't happen that way. CT scan gives a lot of radiation to the body. Unless and until it is prescribed by a doctor, I would not recommend a CT scan of the chest right now. Can we have the next slide, please, madam? As far as the treatment is concerned, there is no current licensed treatment as of now. All of the treatment that is being given is under investigation. Just get this clear. There is no wonder drug. You have an infection, you give this drug, patient gets all right. Doesn't happen that way. We are giving ivermectin, which is an antiparasitic agent, doxycycline, favipiravir is in the market. You have remdesivir, costly, 50,000 for the whole course. Tocilizumab, again, 60 to 70,000 per course, expensive, and they have their own complications. So you have to judge. If the patient is very sick, there are something called as markers called as IL-6 that is very high. And then we go for the next two therapies like remdesivir and tocilizumab, but not for everyone. There are potentially toxic therapies. People have taken these medications and landed up on the ventilator. So you have to be careful about it. And what we do in the hospital, patient comes to us with a COVID suspicion, CT scan is showing some findings. We try to manage the complications that happen with COVID. So complications of COVID, you can have blood clots. So we give a blood thinner to prevent the blood clots. And why are blood clots harmful? If the blood clots are in the legs, it's okay. But if it goes into the lungs, then patient can potentially die. Second is a respiratory failure, where you cannot breathe. The oxygen saturation, it is checked by a pulse oximeter. It is a small machine which is kept on your finger, and you can check the saturation of your oxygen in your blood. Normally, it is around 97, 98. When you have an infection and your lungs get affected, that time your oxygen might drop up to say 60, 70 or 80. Anything below 90 is dangerous. So first we give oxygen through the small mask. Then we try to connect to the ventilator and put on a bigger mask. If even that doesn't work, when patient is, in respiratory distress and the patient is, in air hunger, not able to breathe, at that point of time, we put him on a ventilator. We put a small tube down the throat through the mouth and connect it to the ventilator. Now, many people have this doubt. I want to clear the misconception that ventilator does not give life. You do dialysis for a kidney failure, it is the same thing. You are supporting the lungs by a ventilator. Ventilator does not give you life. Many people have this question. They ask me, sir, when we stop the ventilator, the patient died. Of course, oxygen is essential for your heart. Oxygen is essential for your brain. Oxygen is essential for your kidneys. Oxygen is essential for every part of the body.